Bearings!
Where you are.
Where you are. Is it cold where you are?
Today, not so much.
No, it's nice today. We'll figure this out.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna.
Go on.
I'm right next to you. I don't like how close we are. To be honest,
I think we should be closer.
I don't think we could be. Physically.
Physically, maybe. We should be better friends.
Oh, I see.
There used to be a way to stick it to the man. It was called rock and roll. But guess what? Oh no. The man ruined that too with a little thing called MTV.
Don't talk to me about rock and roll. I'm out there in the clubs and on the streets and I'm living it. I am rock and roll.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
Boom, we're back. Sharon and Mike again. We're going to do things a touch different.
Yeah.
I decided to change it up a little bit. Remember the game like King's Court or like King of the Hill or basically any game where you want to stay on top. King's Court would be like winner moves on sort of deal. We're going to do that with music. So
I like that.
Yeah, here's my thought. So we're going to cover Bearings' Blue in the Dark, their brand new album, their debut full length that came out. And they're going to go up against an album we have already reviewed, which is 21 Pilots' Trench. We both unanimously agreed last week that it was the winner between that and You, Me at 6.
Yeah,
so we're
no question.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. Now, here's some ground rules, some rules. That was repetitive.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What are the rules?
What are the rules? So if we agree that an album wins, it wins.
Sure.
Since there's only two of us, if we are split, we're going to go to a vote on our social networking.
Oh, and other people will...
Yeah, and I mean, that may be a thing. Well, depending on how people vote, I may just make it a thing.
Okay.
And then, but if it does go to a vote, we'll announce, obviously, the following episode. I don't know if every episode is going to be this. This is going to be the series, as it were, but there might be, like if it's an interview, obviously, that's not going to play into that. Or if it's other, potentially random album reviews. We'll see what happens. But sure. And this is also my other thing. So if it wins, it moves on to the next week. If an album wins for, let's say, 10 consecutive times, is that a lot?
I mean, that's a lot.
Well, that may be, we'll see. That's the one thing I got to figure out. But then it'll go against, we'll bring out like a heavy hitter. It'll be something that's like a classic. And we'll
king,
see,
yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see how it stands up. And if the classic wins, then the following week we'll start new. If there isn't a new album that comes out in a week that I'm like, oh, it'll be a worthy adversary, I have a list of albums that people gave me on Reddit that they think are underrated.
Okay.
We will go to one of those and put it up.
I like this.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a little King's Court. So this week we've got an album that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Well, not a long time.
You were very excited.
Yeah, but literally we saw them. I was introduced to them just a couple months ago in the summer.
Was that the first time you
I listened to them because of the concert. Like I'd never heard of them before.
Me either.
We're talking about Bearings, and so I listened to them a little bit ahead of the show. And to be honest, I wasn't overly impressed going into the concert. I was like, yeah, all right, they're fine. They'll be a worthy opening band. Of course, they opened for Seaway and Living with Lions, and I thought they were really good. And then when they played one or two new songs, I was like, okay, this is really good. Like even beyond what they were kind of playing off their EP that they had. And so as they released singles for this record, I got more and more excited. The first three singles were Where You Are, what's the second one called? Aforementioned, and Blue in the Dark. Were three songs that I was like, okay, I'm on board for this record. And it came out. It's got 11 songs. It's out on Pure Noise Records. They're actually, so they're a band from Ottawa, from not our neck of the woods, although people from around the world will be like, oh, they're from Canada. So. Do you know them?
Yeah.
They're from quite a ways away.
It's a long way.
Where are 21 Pilots from? Because I'm wondering if 21 Pilots are actually...
I don't know.
Closer.
Like Ohio?
Yeah, they actually might be closer to us than than Bearings. But yeah, from Ottawa, from our capital city here in Canada. Canada. So
couple good Canadian boys.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Blue in the Dark by
Well, here's
Bearings?
the thing. So when we saw them live, that was the first I'd ever heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you took the liberty to kind of listen to these bands in advance. I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just more so excited to see Seaway.
Sure.
But yeah, we saw them live, and it was a good show.
Yeah.
I wasn't probably as blown away.
Well, I wasn't necessarily blown away by their show either. I thought it was good, and then
It was good.
the new songs is where I was like, oh, that was better than anticipated for me.
Yeah, and so they were good, and when I actually kind of forgot about them until you brought up the fact that their album was coming out, you were
Right.
pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
And so then I took a listen to it, and I remembered, I think they played Where You Are live, because I remembered
I think they
that
played
one.
Where You Are and potentially aforementioned.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I don't think they played Blue in the Dark.
Yeah, I recognize those.
Yeah.
And
We could go on Setlist FM and find out
Yeah, we
maybe,
could.
but we're not gonna.
No. Anyways, so I was like listening to it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this, and I remember they kind of like had a unique sound. And I generally don't like bands like that too much.
Sure.
I don't know. You maybe tend to lean towards that a little more. You like the more unique kind
Sure,
of.
yeah, okay.
You know, they do a bunch of different things. Not necessarily my cup of tea. However, I must say, I could not stop listening to this album. I could not stop. And like I was hearing all these different bands that I like in it. Like there was some Real Friends
Yes.
type stuff.
Yes.
You know, there was some Knuckle Puck type stuff in
Sure.
it. There was a little bit of everything. And then there was like, they just kind of sprinkled their own stuff in it.
Yeah.
And it just sounded different. But for some reason, and I can't explain it, it hooked me. And I've listened to this album like 3 times through already.
Yeah.
And that never happens
Yeah.
with albums that you send me.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've listened through this album. It helps that I went on a road trip this past weekend.
Yeah.
And same thing. I kept coming back to it. Real Friends for sure. I hear in there, and I do want to give an update. Speaking of that, Real Friends Composure might be the best Real Friends record.
Really?
It has grown on me
Oh, my
so
goodness.
much. And I say might, it's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than Home Inside My Head or whatever.
I gotta say, it's grown on me too. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm putting it that high yet, but it definitely has grown on me. I think maybe we were a little harsh on it.
And I will actually say, because we reviewed it against Between You and Me, it is better than Between You and Me. I've come to that conclusion, even though we both picked Between You and Me
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to Between You and Me, whereas Real Friends Composure, part of it was I want to give this record more of a chance.
Yeah.
And then as I did, it grew on me. Anyways, back to Bearings. I definitely heard that, and I say that because it brought me back to listening to Composure a little bit too. There are, okay, so with this record, I was super pumped about it. I listened to the 3 singles, and as I was listening to the album, I was like, okay, it's keeping its momentum as far as, songs are concerned. Like as it goes into Eyes Closed, Beautiful Places, and then comes back to another single, Blue in the Dark, Stuck in a Door Frame, Careless Clarity, and then it hit. It was either Careless Clarity or Hear Me Say. There's a bit of a lull for me the first time I listened through. But as I listen to it over again, it becomes less of a lull. And I think it's just that it's an abrupt sort of change in sound for one of those songs. And I can't remember exactly. If I go like this, let's see. Yep, it's Careless Clarity. It takes a turn. It kind of takes this like 90s vibe kind of going on, like 90s alternative rock. So anyways, which is fine. But my one kind of outside once those grew on me, my one kind of criticism for this album is the way the tracks are put together. It all goes great up until you get to the last 3 tracks. I really feel, and not only on title alone, but track 9, Goodbye to All of Our Friends, should be the last song. The way that song ends.
That's my favorite song on the whole album.
Oh, for sure. It's the most unique sound on the album as far as the song's concerned. The way that song ends with the big sing, like the big kind of gang vocals singing it out.
Very anthemic.
Yeah. I get following it up with Tide because the lyrics in Goodbye to All of Our Friends, kind of a downer.
Yeah.
Right? So I can understand, and I'm okay with Tide following it up. being this kind of like light little acoustic number. I'm like, okay, this big thing, and then you kind of have this like settle down at the end. I'm okay with that even. It's really when it gets into Love and Decay that I'm kind of like, you really could have put that song anywhere on the record except for the end.
Okay, remind me, is that kind of like the acoustic love song?
No,
or
that's
is that-
Tide.
Okay.
Tide's the acoustic love
Okay.
song where I'm like, I'm okay with
Yeah.
that being a closer after if you're not going to finish with Goodbye to All of Our Friends
Yeah.
because, like I said, Goodbye to All of Our Friends lyrically is pretty heavy. It is a big anthemic song, and then you can kind of like settle down a little bit. Okay, that's fine if you're not going to end with the big hook. But when they put Love and Decay at the end, I'm kind of like, you really could have stuck that anywhere on the album.
Yeah.
And it would have been like, okay. But it being the last song, I'm always kind of like, part of it works in a sense that I'm like, oh, those two songs, Goodbye and Tide, I'm like, yes. And oh, there's more.
Yeah.
It kind of works in that sense, but at the same point, I'm like, the album really could have drawn to a close with either one of, track 9 or 10. That's my only real critique on this record.
I would agree with that. I think that's fair. And I gotta say, like, I listened through this a couple of times, and the thing that always catches me is like, yeah, they have all these musical sounds that I enjoy in other bands, but I don't know if you noticed this, but the drums on this album, like, I think they have an incredible drummer because there's points where it's like, it would sound like a generic song. It would sound like any other
Right.
if they just kept the same, but like
He'll switch it up.
Yeah, he'll switch it
Yeah.
up and he'll go to the next
Yeah.
level and then he'll bring it back and then he'll go all in and come
Which
back.
I think is on Hear Me Say maybe, where I think the song starts slow.
Yeah.
And then there's a really awesome drum. I think it's on Hear Me Say, a really great drum part where he like goes into this roll and like the sound kind of opens up as their vocalist kind of repeats a line.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to the chorus and I'm like, but then halfway through the chorus, he opens up and goes
Yeah.
double time. And I'm like, oh, this is all of a sudden really good.
Exactly.
Whereas it kind of had moments at the beginning a little bit where I was like, it's all right. But one other, like, and this is a nitpick purely on, like, preferences for me. I think it's on Goodbye to All of Our Friends. There's, like, a bit of a guitar solo.
Yeah.
It's not even a guitar solo so much as he's playing the melody.
Yeah.
But I just hate that he used a wah. Like a particular guitar effect that I'm like, you should have just played that straight.
Yeah.
And it would have been like that song from start to finish to me would have been like, there's nothing wrong with that
Yeah.
song. But yeah, and also on Goodbye to All of Our Friends, a callback kind of to a record that we sort of agreed on, but also disagreed on with Trophy Eyes and The American Dream.
Yeah.
On Goodbye to All of Our Friends, like I haven't really gone back to Trophy Eyes, and I stand by my comment saying like I feel like it's a record that doesn't have much staying power.
Yeah.
The American Dream. But on Goodbye to All of Our Friends, the first chorus sounds like it's straight off that Trophy Eyes record. When it cuts down to like acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
he's singing in a lower register and the drums kind of cut out and it's Goodbye to All of Our Friends.
Yeah, I can
I'm like,
see that.
oh, and the first time it came on, when it hit that point, I just turned it up. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is all because it captured one of the things I liked on Trophy Eyes without A, being too much and going over the top, and B, without coming off as too cheesy. It was just like this nice little taste of like, look, we changed it up.
Yeah.
And it really sets that song off because like the first verse is kind of like, okay, but when it hits that from that point on, that song is almost flawless in my mind. Like
Yeah.
it's so good.
Well, I gotta say, like, and I think one of the greatest things is when you get surprised by an
Yeah,
album, and
yeah.
you were pretty hyped on this, but
Yeah.
I wasn't at all.
Yeah.
And this kind of like came out of the blue and smacked me in the face. And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm impressed. Like,
Yeah.
and I saw these guys live, and I didn't even know they were Canadian. That's great to know too.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that
wow.
whole tour was Canadian, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Every band that was playing, at least at that show, was all Canadian. Yeah, and so for this record, I was a little tentative because I did like the lead singles so much.
Yeah.
Off of it, like Where You Are and Aforementioned, they were kind of interchangeable a little bit to me. And then Blue in the Dark drove it home. I was like, it's been a while since I've heard a really good like sad ballad that just like I liked so much about it, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing that I kind of critique on that song is the way he says, because the chorus is great. I love like how it goes to like the kind of gang vocal sort of thing. Where it's like, take my heart and
Yeah.
make it feel. Except the way he says that sounds like he says, take my heart and make it fail. And I'm like, but that's weird. And then he says, take my soul and make it real.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he says, take my soul and make it rail. I'm like, that's weird.
Rail my soul.
Yeah. But yeah, that record. So I was a little tentative with the first 3 singles, how much I did actually like them. Going, okay, is the record going to let me down? But the fact that you have a song like "Goodbye to All of Our Friends" that I think actually exceeds the singles is great, because all the other songs do their part and they keep the record going. But the fact that a non-single at this point, I think, steals the show is always a good sign.
I love it when that happens. And I also, he has a very unique voice.
He does.
And it's not, I mean, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
And I think it works perfectly for their sound, for what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, the stars just seem to align on this one for
I
me.
feel like they're on the verge of being kind of like that, potentially that next band in the pop punk scene that like takes that step, and people are like, have you heard Bearings?
Yeah.
Because I think they do have all the things going on. They're lyrically, they're great. I don't think there's any cheesy lyrics on the record that I'm like, I don't know about that. And then sonically, I think they've got it all going as well. But this isn't just a one album show, though. We now have to see if it's unseated the champion. And here's the thing I want to say about 21 Pilots with Trench. Similar to what I said about Real Friends, Trench is 21 Pilots' best record. Hands down. Hands down.
What?
Hands down as an album from start to finish. I don't care what you say about singles. Hands down as an album from start to finish, it's their best record.
Well, okay, you sent a video to me, kind of walking
yeah.
through the whole
Which is also
story
put together
of it.
by a Canadian.
Yeah, well, we're just all Canadian here. But that's incredible. How he writes and makes a world and then puts it into music. That's
Now I
absolutely
will critique something on that as well, though. Is so the story, which we didn't get into when we reviewed it, the story of Trench, and the city of Dima and all this stuff that's going on with it is great, and it's interesting, and using it, if you want to use it as a metaphor for depression, mental health sort of stuff, which is something I've seen sort of lean to on like the Easter eggs all over the internet. That's all great. The problem is, I don't know that from start to finish they actually carry that narrative through, which is a little bit of a bummer. And B, there are songs that suffer from being purely based on the narrative. So like Nico and the Niners as a standalone song makes no sense with what he's singing. No sense. It's a fine song. It's catchy. My kids love it. On this road trip, I listened to it a bunch as well. And some of the critiques I may have had were saying it fell apart at one point, kind of midway through, aren't quite as true, because I do think there are songs that fall off. But then you have songs like Bandito, which I think is so good, and it's later in the album. Neon Gravestones, I think, is the best song on the album.
Good song, yeah.
So, but again, for me, it suffers from being a little bit too long. And I think in the end that may hurt it. But when it comes down to picking between Bearings and 21 Pilots, where are you going?
Dude, this
knowing that you're a 21 Pilots fan.
Huge, all the way 21 Pilots fan. And this is hard. Like, this is a tough one to do. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think Bearings. I like Bearings more, and I can't believe I even said that, but it's true. This album absolutely blew me away.
So this is what I'm picking Bearings as well. So I may put a poll up on Facebook and stuff and just get people if they want to vote anyways, but I'm going with Bearings as well. And part of that is because like even listening to 21 Pilots more and more over the course of the weekend while driving, it still does feel a little too long. So everything that Bearings does in like what? I don't even know if it's 30 minutes. Yeah, it is 36 minutes. So 11 tracks, 36 minutes. They get the job done, and it's also pleasantly surprising, and it feels good to listen to. 21 Pilots has some great songs. It's got some moments where I'm kind of like, It has some problems with narrative if you're going to tell a story, I think. And it is a little long, but...
Well, and I think this is the way it is, because with 21 Pilots, they're coming off a massively successful album, and they're trying to come up with this thing to kind of reach that. Bearings is new on the scene,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're coming out of the blue, and it's
Yeah.
just it's
Coming
two
out of
bands
the
in two different places.
Blue in the dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, well, that settles it. We're gonna go with Bearings and Blue in the Dark. Their debut full length. If you haven't listened to it,
Listen to it.
Yeah, listen to it, and you're just like hearing the music in the background right now, unless you're on YouTube. Listen to it. It is worth your 36 minutes. I promise you that. It's got a little something for everyone, really. I mean, I guess maybe there's no like metalcore or anything on there, but as far as inside the pop punk realm of things, I think it's got a little something for everybody, and maybe for some people outside of that. So, Bearings, Blue in the Dark, dethrones the champ, the 1 week
Unbelievable.
champ of which was a heavy hitter though, 21
was-
Pilots
yeah.
Trench. So onwards and upwards from here, we'll see what comes next and if Bearings can take down their next challenger. But make sure you follow us on, I'm on Instagram at David to my peers. One day there will be at Jordan to my peers. I almost created an email address for you just
I
to
mean, we
create
should
it.
we should just do it, I guess.
Head on to Facebook, look up Music to My Peers. You can also YouTube. Some of our episodes are up there when I'm not lazy. And then also musicpeers.blogspot.com. That's going to do it, though. Bearings, Blue in the Dark, the
Unreal.
new champions.